What's up, guys? So real quick, I'm gonna do the contest again. Um, this is gonna be um, for the Holly Holm versus Bueno Silva card, and what you got to do, like always, if you're new to the channel, you haven't heard this before, you just got to pick three winners, and you got to pick the winner, the method of victory, and the round, and you can only pick one decision. And if whoever gets that right first will get to pick one of these items. And so if you want to try to win, it's the autographed UFC glove, autographed by Juliana Miller, Killer Miller. Got an autographed Donald Cerrone. Got an autographed Demetrius Johnson. And I got an autographed Holly Holm. So if you want a chance to win, man, just comment on this video, man. Give me your picks. I'll screenshot them as they come in so I know which order they came in. And if you win, I'll let you pick one and I'll send it to you, man. So appreciate it, guys, man. Enjoy the video. What's up, guys? We're here to go over UFC London, Aspinall versus Tybura. But first, real quick, man, talk about the results from last weekend. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I ended up making some money. My biggest play on the card was a play on Esteban Ribovics, and that one hit first fight of the night. I had more plays originally, but as per usual, I had a play on Jack Della Maddalena. Fight got canceled both times, and that's kind of happens a lot with me. I don't know if y'all have noticed that a lot of the fights I bet on get canceled. And then other than that, I had a two-fight parlay that was Whitaker and, who was that? Whitaker. Oh yeah, Whitaker and Ribovics, and that one didn't hit. Obviously, I was kind of shocked that Dricus du Plessis pulled out the win. Man, he looked really good after his nose surgery. So, and other than that, I had a live bet. Quite a few fights, made some money that way, and I had a two-man parlay that was Pantoja and Rodriguez, and I went ahead and cashed it out, before the main event because I wasn't very confident in Rodriguez. Obviously, I picked Volkanovski to win. I just kind of threw together that underdog parlay for the hell of it, but I figured why not go ahead and hedge out and take the money, and obviously it was a good thing I did. It was a pretty crazy card. Did pretty good on the picks. A lot of my underdogs. I picked a lot of underdogs, and several of them lost. There were a couple that won. Um, it was a very exciting card, and yeah, Volkanovski's unstoppable, man. I don't know if Tybura's got anything. Topuria's got anything for him. Not Tybura. That's a heavyweight. But yeah, anyways, so please like and subscribe, guys. It really helped me out a lot. If I can get up to that 1,000 subscriber mark and actually start making a little bit of money on doing this channel aside from my betting, it would do a lot for the channel, man. I don't ever see myself being real fancy like some of these other channels where they just look like a EA Sports, ESPN Sports show or whatever and all that. It's not really me, not really my thing. But I could do a lot more cool stuff. I could do better contests and give away more stuff, for you guys and whatever. And if you're new to the channel, what I do is I go through and I give out all my predictions for each fight, and at the end of the video, I do my bets. And if you want to, if you're not interested in watching the video and you just want to look at my picks or my bets, you can go over to my Instagram. It's highkick_fight_picks. And also, for the guys that don't have Instagram, I did make a Facebook group. I could put the link in the comments, but it is just High Kick Fight Picks on Facebook. So if any of y'all are interested in that, I post all my bet flyers and stuff on there. And I'm available on Spotify, Pandora, iTunes, all that stuff. And I guess that's about it, man, for the intro there. Let's take a look. It's crazy looking at this. It actually says we haven't lost any fights yet on this card. Normally I have to go over 3 or 4 fights that we lost in every card. But let's get into it, man. First up, we got Rafael Filo taking on Daniel Barez. And Rafael is 30 years old, 5'7" with a 68.5-inch reach. He is 14-3 and 0-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 112 pick'em. The line's been fluctuating on that a little bit. Barez was actually an underdog at one point the other day. But yeah, so Philo he's a lot better than his UFC record may indicate. He jumped in on short notice and fought Makayev, and I believe he made a good account of himself. He honestly destroyed Makayev's knee in that fight. Man, I don't know how Makayev didn't tap out. And yeah, this guy's very exciting, but all but one of his wins have been by finish, 5 knockouts and 8 submissions. He has great jiu-jitsu, and he's going to have a 2.5-inch reach advantage. But at times, there's been some fights where he was a little bit, too comfortable being on his back, looking for submissions, which, can lose you a fight. But, to be fair, he did win those fights. And, he's constantly looking for the neck from bottom position or when guys are shooting for the takedowns. His striking isn't horrible either, man. He throws good calf kicks, throws heavy shots. I would like to see him throw more volume because he didn't put out very much volume in his last fight. And, he did have a good second round against Makayev, though. He kind of won in the striking department there. I think, Makayev seemed to be kind of coasting in that round, and Rafael was able to kind of take advantage of that. Just because Makayev could take him down doesn't mean he has, bad takedown defense. Makayev is an amazing wrestler. You can't fault him for that. And, I expect Rafael to look a lot better here coming in on a full camp. He seems to be pretty talented, man. And he's taking on Daniel Barez. He is 34 years old, 5'6", with a 66-inch reach. He is 16-5, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And as of right now, he's a minus 108. It's kind of a pick 'em on these guys. And yeah, this guy, he lost a split decision in his fight on who was that? The Contender Series fight. Carlos Hernandez. A few years ago on the Contender Series. And since then, he's gotten 4 finishes, but if you look at the records of the guys that he beat, it's kind of, yeah, a guy that's 10-9, 7-9, 6-9, and 14-12. And that was what I was thinking leading into it before I actually did watch all the tape. I was thinking this guy had a padded record, and maybe he needed more work or something, but I was actually pretty impressed, it's hard to be impressed with the level of competition he's fought, but when I went back and watched the tape, man, he did really impress me. And like I said, he's killing these guys, in the first round, so that's impressive. Very effective with his calf kicks. Very fast. He dropped a guy with a jab in one of the fights I watched. He will definitely have a striking advantage in this fight. There's no doubt about that. He's one of the few fighters from Spain that we've seen in the UFC. He's a Spanish combat sambo champion. He's very well-rounded. 7 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. He throws nasty combinations, tons of volume. He has really good footwork. And the only worry that I could possibly have with him would be if his cardio isn't good. But he is very experienced, and he has gone to decision a few times, and he's gotten finishes late in fights as well. Originally, I thought I was going to go with Rafael, but, what I had to do really was go back and watch Barez's fight, with Hernandez, because that's the toughest opponent that Barez has fought. And I got to say, man, I saw a lot that I liked. He definitely won the first round. It was very close. Arguably Barez could have won that fight. And so I like the price, and I think I'm going to take Barez. If you go back and watch it, he's very aggressive, very good to stand up. He's got decent wrestling and good takedown defense, man. So I think he's kind of being underestimated here now that I've watched the tape, man. He's a very tough guy, very talented. And I'm going to take him to win by KO in round 2. Everyone on Tapology is going with Philo, but they obviously haven't watched the tape. This could be a very close fight, but I was really impressed with what I saw at Barez upon watching all the tape. So next up, we got Bruna Brasil taking on Shauna Bannon. another Irish prospect, man. And Brazil is 29 years old, 5'6", with a 65.5 inch reach. She is 8-3-1 and 0-1 in the UFC, and she's a minus 116. And yeah, Bruna jumped into the spotlight with a big head kick knockout on the Contender Series. But her debut, she just kind of looked like she wasn't there, man. She got finished, and we did see the girl that beat her this past weekend get a major upset victory. Denise Gomes obviously is the real deal and has big power, man. She finished Uruguay, which is crazy. No one expected that coming. And I wonder if it was just nerves or what. But also, we did find out, Gomes is a tough customer, man. So I can't say I'm surprised now. And she was the way bigger girl in that fight, man, and she let her opponent kind of bully her around. Uh, Bruna's got a fair amount of finishes on her record. Her best weapons are her kicks. She stands real tall in her striking. She has good submissions. Um, but it's hard for me to say much more based on what we've seen so far, obviously, and based on the level of competition that she's taken on. Her first jump up in competition didn't go well for her, so this will be the fight where we know for sure where she's at. And but now that I think about it like that, now that Gomes has proved to be the real deal, it kind of makes me second guess this fight a little bit more, And she's taking on Shauna Bannon. She's 29 years old, 5'5", with a 69-inch reach. She is 5-0, and this is going to be her UFC debut, and she's a minus 108. There's a lot of close lines on this card, man. A lot of good spots to make money, man. And so yeah, she's only 5-0, but had a long amateur career as well. Seems to have good boxing, has a kickboxing background, primarily known for her striking. Throws up a lot of submissions off of her back, very aggressive guard. Brazil may have a grappling advantage and the advantage with her kicks and her long legs, but Bannon will have the better boxing, and it's hard to say how well she'll do against higher level competition. Um, the level of competition Bannon fought hasn't been good either, man, and I'm really seriously questioning whether I should the lines are real close, man, and for the purposes of the channel, I was going to go with Bannon, man, to win by decision. Um, and I guess I'll stay with that pick, but when it comes down to it, to making my parlays, I'll probably go with whoever's the underdog. If I include this fight on them, so Brazil will probably end up being the underdog. And I think she's probably got a good chance to win it now that we know that Gomes is the real deal, and it wasn't like she just got beat by somebody that isn't a good fighter. So yeah, that kind of makes me question it all, man. I'll probably be going with the underdog, but I'll stick with my pick of Bannon. But whoever the underdog is, I'll probably take them on my parlays. Next up, we got Brian Barberena taking on Mahmoud Muradov. And Brian is 34 years old. He's 6 foot tall with a 72-inch reach. He is 18-10 and 9-8 in the UFC, and he's a plus 235 underdog. Yeah, Brian is usually in pretty exciting fights. He's a brawler. He's got big power in his hands. He thrives in wars. But I wouldn't call him a good striker. He wins when the fights are crazy, like wars. If he can get his opponents out of their comfort zone and make them just start throwing wild with him, he does well then. He can push a tough pace on the feet, man. But his weaknesses are his takedown defense and submission defense. If you can take him down, you will win the fight. And if you're a sniper that has good head movement and you can stay out of the way of the big shots, you'll probably win the fight as well. He does get hit a lot on the feet. And, I've never really been high on Brian, from a betting standpoint. I always look forward to his fights, because they're always exciting. But as far as getting wrapped up with money, I've never really, had money on him for anything. But his wins here lately have been over guys that are like 40 plus years old, that are on the way out, of the fight game. And, unfortunately, this is a very bad fight for Brian, in my opinion. And he's taking on Mahmoud Muradov. He is 33 years old, 6'2", with a 75.5-inch reach. He is 25-8 and 3-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 275 favorite. So, this guy's a finisher, man. He has 17 wins by knockout on his record. He's dropped his last 2 fights, but sometimes, Gerald Meerschaert catches guys sometimes, and it happens. He beats people sometimes he has no business beating. And Baralo has a great wrestling, takedowns and all that stuff, so I can't really fault him for that fight either. Mahmoud's striking is pretty high level. He's a former pro kickboxer. Heavy hands. He's going to have a 3.5 inch reach advantage. Very fast and explosive. He will have the advantages, in my opinion, everywhere the fight goes. Although he's not known for his grappling, I think it's still better than Barberena's, and I think he'll be able to get the takedowns if he wants to. He moves in and out of the pocket very well. Nice footwork. Not a whole lot more to say here, man. I expect Muradov to get the win by knockout in round 1 or 2, and I think it's a pretty safe bet. I wish there was a better price on it. So next up, we got Ketlin Vieira taking on Penny Kianzad. Kianzad. um, Ketlin is 31 years old, 5'8" with a 68-inch reach. She is 13-3 and 7-3 in the UFC, and she's a minus 185 favorite. So yeah, I was impressed, even though I thought that Caitlin lost the Holly Holm fight, and I was just impressed that she was kind of at least able to do enough, for it to go to a split decision and keep it close. Didn't agree with that decision though. But then she turned around and lost to Raquel Pennington, which was another close fight, another split decision. She's only won one fight in the UFC by finish, and it was a submission. And she fights well in the clinch. She controls her opponents up against the cage pretty well. Has a lot of success with that. She's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. Fights in a traditional Muay Thai stance. Seems to be pretty powerful, but like I said, no finishes. Throws a lot of jabs. She'll double, triple it up at times. Throws good knees in close. And in her last fight, she was timing her left hook really well. When she was timing the left hook really well off the leg kick. When her opponent was throwing the leg kick, she was coming over with the check left hook. And when she's not throwing her jab, she throws more than just one shot at a time, which is something that I think everybody should do, in my opinion. And it's a lot better to follow up your shots. You're more likely to land on your second or third punch because they're going to see the first one coming. She has pretty good takedown defense. She doesn't shoot a lot of takedowns, and I don't expect her to try that in this fight either. This is probably going to be a pretty close fight. She's taking on Penny Kianzad. She is 31 years old, 5'7" with a 66-inch reach. She is 16-6 and 5-3 in the UFC, and she's a plus 155 underdog. Yeah, so the first thing that jumps out, to me is most of her wins have come by decision, unanimous decisions, not split decisions. She only has 3 wins by knockout and none by submission. She's a lifelong martial artist, started out in boxing at a young age. At 19 years old, she was the Swedish shoot fighting champion, and she hasn't fought in a little over a year. She has excellent boxing, really nice 3-2 combination. She has a nasty jab. She showed some decent grappling in her last fight as well. She was taking the back up against the cage and just kind of throwing one leg over, wrapping the leg up, and just kind of slowly dropping her opponent down to the ground. Both of these girls' last loss was to Raquel Pennington. And in my opinion, Kianzad could go down a weight class. She does usually seem to be the smaller fighter, but things have really pretty much been going her way for the most part. I think Ketlin's going to be way bigger, but I feel like this fight could be really close. Like I said, and looking at Ketlin's record, she's in a lot of split decision fights, and Kianzad is very strong with her Muay Thai clinch. She was beating Pennington up in the first round with her knees. And yeah, man, I think I would take the plus money on this one on Kianzad. I think there's more value on that. She does tend to win fights more dominantly rather than being close. Probably not a lot of people are going to agree with that, but I did like a lot of what I saw out of her in her fight versus the Ketlin Vieira Raquel Pennington fight. I thought Kianzad did a lot better. Yeah, I think this fight's going to stay on the feet, and if I think. I think Penny has a good shot in the stand up, man. She's very good. She's very effective up against the cage and has good trips. So I think I'm going to go with Kianzad by decision. Obviously, I won't be getting too heavily invested in it. Just kind of throw it in one of my parlays. Next up, we got Danny Roberts taking on Johnny Parsons. And Danny is 36 years old, 6'1" with a 74-inch reach. He's 18-7, and Sorry. And 7-6 in the UFC. I actually need to check because at the time of me doing my notes, they didn't have this lineup. Sorry. Wanted to make sure I at least tried to look it up before I went through the whole video. Yeah, they still don't have it up on. They don't have it up on Bovada. Let me check Bet Online. Still don't see it on there either, man. Hmm. I'm willing to bet that Danny's probably going to be a. I don't know, man. He hasn't been doing that good lately, but I think that he should be probably the favorite in this fight. Um, where was I at? Um, oh yeah, so Danny is a decent striker. He's powerful. 8 wins by knockout, 5 by submission. He's well rounded. And looking at his record, the best win that he's had so far is against Ramazan Emeev. But we found out that Emeev isn't really all that good. Most of Danny's wins are over guys that aren't in the UFC anymore. Some never won a fight in the UFC. Most of them. In fact, I think all of them, other than Emeev, never won a fight in the UFC. I could be wrong though. Don't quote me on that. Um, he's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here. All that being said, man, he's a very exciting fighter to watch. He's really well rounded. His wrestling's improved a lot since he's been in the UFC. He's really been honing his skills in. His takedown defense has improved a lot. I don't think he's gonna have to worry about takedowns in this fight. He's more than just a striker, man. He's got slick boxing. He throws great, powerful kicks. It's just you never know what you're gonna get, man. He comes out looking like a killer sometimes, and other times it seems like he's not there, or I don't know. Of course, the last one was Jack Dilla Maddalena. You can't hold that against him, but Danny's really aggressive off his back, man. This is definitely a winnable fight for him, in my opinion. He's taking on Johnny Parsons. He is 31 years old, 5'9" with a 69-inch reach. He is 8-3, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And this is another heavy hitter, man. He got lots of knockouts on his record, no submission wins or losses. Coming off a split decision win on the Contender Series. It was a pretty close fight, a very exciting fight, and he almost got knocked out in the first round. I mean, he has a great Muay Thai background, trained over in Thailand. That's where you get the best, Muay Thai training, obviously. And, strong calf kicks and checks kicks very well. Takedown defense didn't look very good in his last fight. He got taken down quite a few times. He also took a beat in the first round. Like I said, I'm surprised that, that fight didn't get stopped, honestly. But he showed to be very durable and was, throwing good question mark kicks. And I could see a world where Parsons wins this fight, but I do really like his style, man. He's very exciting and very good striking, and I would like to see him win fights, in the UFC. Uh, Danny's going to be the way bigger guy, I think, and Danny will be able to use his grappling to get the victory here if he needs to. So, I think Danny will definitely be able to get the takedowns. I'm going to take Danny to win by submission in round 2. Next up, this should be a good one. Chris Duncan taking on Yanal Ashmouz. And Chris is 5'10", 30 years old, 5'10", with a 71.5-inch reach. He is 10-1 and 1-0 in the UFC. Yeah, this guy's very exciting, man. I believe this fight's almost a pick'em as well. I think the lines were like 108, and let me check again just to make sure. Sorry, some of these weren't up at the time of my notes. Yeah, it's a pick'em, minus 110 both ways. Yeah, he's very exciting. He got knocked out, in his first shot in the Contender Series. Came back and was getting his ass kicked, and then landed a big counter shot and got the knockout to win his contract. 7 knockouts on his record. He had success in Bellator and went to a split decision in his last fight against Omar Morales. It was a close fight. And I like his style, man. I like the knockouts, but I don't like him getting rocked in every fight that I see. And it has happened in probably at least his last 4 fights. He's going to have a 3.5-inch reach advantage. He had to use his grappling to get the win last time out. He really shows, he really loads up on the right hand, man. You can see it coming from a mile away. He's good, but he's not very technical with his striking, in my opinion. Very powerful and explosive. He's at a good camp. This should be an exciting fight, man. But upon going back and rewatching the tape on his last fight, I actually thought Morales won that fight because Morales was doing more damage than what Duncan was doing with his takedowns and basically doing nothing on the ground. But that's just in my opinion. Either way, Chris Duncan's a very exciting fighter. He's fighting out of Scotland, so I've got the little bit of Scottish DNA, or actually quite a bit of Scottish DNA in my family. So um, kind of rooting for him there. There's several fighters on this card that I really want to pick because they're from Scotland. And he's taking on Yanel Ashmouz. He is 28 years old, 5'9", with a 68-inch reach. He is 7-0 and 1-0 in the UFC. And yeah, all but one of this guys have been by finish, both submissions and knockouts. He's very powerful. He cashed in as a big underdog, against a guy that was twice his size last time out. No one thought he was going to win that fight. It was very impressive. He has really good wrestling as well, even though he didn't get to show it in his last fight. He did show it in his PFL fight. If you go back and watch the tape on that, he's built like a tank. And after doing my research, man, I think Ashmouz is actually better everywhere the fight goes, man. And he's even got a lot of late finishes as well, third round finishes. So the cardio is there. The power carries over into the third round. And I'm going to be taking Ashmouz to get the win by knockout round one. Just because Chris Duncan has been getting hurt in almost every fight I've watched of his. So even though he's won most of them, that scares me a little bit against a very powerful guy like Ashmouz. Next up, we got Mark Diakase taking on Joel Alvarez. And Mark is 30 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach. He is 16-6 and 7-6 in the UFC, and he's a plus 125 underdog. And Mark used to, be primarily known for his striking, but actually has really worked on his wrestling. And he used it to get a couple wins, man, when he needed them. They were pretty boring fights, but he was able to get the wins, which is all that mattered at that point because he was on a losing streak. So I understand it. But honestly, the guys that he out wrestled have terrible takedown defense. And Mark wasn't able to get Michael Johnson down in his last fight, and was trying to showboat and all that shit, and kind of got outpointed and lost a decision. And it made him look really stupid, in my opinion, because he was really acting like he was doing something in that fight, but he was getting outlanded. So Mark's never been knocked out. He has 6 wins by knockout, only 1 by submission, and obviously the other 9 wins have been by decision. And hasn't had a finish win in the UFC since 2017, I think. 2017 or 2016, one or the other. He's very tough, well-rounded. His striking is good, but I noticed in his last fight that he was really telegraphing, the leg kick, and when he threw it, Johnson saw it coming and was countering him every time. And he was mostly just throwing one shot at a time in that fight, so he wasn't having as much success. Everything he was throwing was like big and loaded up on heavy spin attacks, and he wasn't landing any of it, so it wasn't conserving his energy very well. I think Mark will need to use his striking to have success. If he takes down Alvarez in this fight, he will definitely get submitted. Whenever Mark gets taken down, he's pretty good at scrambling to his feet as well. So, but we all know that Alvarez isn't scared to just pull people down into his guard. There's a lot of fights like that. But anyway, I'll get into him now. Joel Alvarez is 30 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. He is 19-3 and 4-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 150 favorite. And I really like this guy, man. He's going to have a 4-inch reach advantage, very tall for the weight class, very good jiu-jitsu, 16 wins by submission on his record, 3 wins by knockout. All of his wins have been by finish. He's never won by decision. He's only lost to really tough guys, man, Ismagulov and Sarukian, so it's no fault in that there, man. His most impressive win was the win over Thiago Moises, where he really he knocked him out of a standing TKO up against the cage. It was very impressive, and I think he was an underdog in that fight. On this card, man, there's going to be a pretty strong display of how good these guys from Spain are, in my opinion. He comes out, he throws a lot of hard kicks, he beats up the arms, to get you uncomfortable, and then he tries to get it to the ground. He's got a very good guillotine choke. He goes for it immediately when guys are shooting on him. It's the first thing he reaches for. Just it's like instinct to him. Nasty armbar. His striking's improved a lot since he got in the UFC. He has had trouble making weight a few times, but he did win those fights. So I guess not going to hold that against him, but something to watch on this fight. He used his knees really well in the Moises fight. He was throwing hard elbows up close up against the cage. Watching the tapes, man, I think Joel is better everywhere the fight goes, man. I think he throws more volume on the feet, and DKC obviously is a good striker, but Alvarez is really tough, man. I was really impressed with what I saw out of him, and he just keeps improving. So I like the price on him, man. So I'm taking Alvarez to get the win by submission, round one. Next up, we got Davey Grant taking on Daniel Marcos. Excuse me. No breaks, man. I do it all in one take. Davey Grant is 37 years old, 5'8", with a 69-inch reach. He is 13-6 and 6-5 in the UFC, and he's a plus 105 underdog. And this is a very hard fight for me, to pick. I've had plays on both these guys recently. I will say Davey was on his way to losing his last fight before he wasn't looking good at all, man. And then he locked in that it was like an inverted triangle choke or reverse triangle or something, and choked his opponent out. I couldn't believe that because I had money on him. Thought for sure he was going to lose that fight. And so he showed how well-rounded he is with that. Man, it's been a while since we've seen him win by submission. I had plays on Grant in his last two fights, and I really like Grant's kickboxing. He throws a lot of calf kicks, and those calf kicks will lead him into his spinning attacks. Kind of misses with the calf kick and comes around with a spin. And nice front kicks up the middle, to the head and the body. Very powerful. How many wins by knockout does he have? I forgot. 4 wins by knockout, 7 by submission. So, he's well-rounded. Most of his losses have been by submission, though, so maybe submission defense is one of his, weak areas. He throws a lot of volume, man. He does tend to slow down a bit late in the fight because he throws, mostly power shots, the whole first round of his which fight was that? The whole first round of Luis Smolka fight, he was just throwing nothing but power shots the whole first round, man. And he did slow down noticeably, but he did go on to get the finish. So very impressive. He's very exciting. One of my favorite fighters. He's taking on Daniel Marcos. He is 30 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. These guys have the same reach. 14-0 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 125 favorite. And yeah, he has very good striking, man. Great kickboxing. I had an underdog play on him last time out that paid off. Big power, 8 wins by knockout, no wins or losses by submission. Marcos throws good front kicks up the middle. He landed those in his last 2 fights that I watched, and he's very fast. Seems to have good takedown defense. But we haven't seen him against any super high level wrestlers yet, so I can't really say based on what I've seen that he's got legit takedown defense. He goes to the body a lot with his punches, good knees and elbows. And then he also throws long combinations, uses his jab very well. These guys have the same reach, like I said, but Davey tends to throw big shots instead of popping the jab out there. And Marcos will probably have the cardio advantage. He also has the better head movement, in my opinion. And this is one of those fights that could go either way. And you have to consider the fact that Grant is fighting at home. The UFC sometimes gives guys opponents that they think they can beat. When they're fighting at home. Kind of like how all the Canadian fighters, won at the event in Canada. And yeah, it's hard to turn down the plus money on Grant. Honestly, I think either Davey wins by finish in the first round, or Marcos takes over and wins the last 2 rounds. They're both really good strikers. I expect this fight to stay on the feet, but I do feel like Grant will have the jiu-jitsu advantage if it goes to the ground and the grappling advantage. But I don't expect him to use it. This is one of those fights that, I usually tell myself to go with the plus money on this. It's a hard choice. I would say if you're betting it straight up, take Grant for the plus money, or live bet it and take Marcos in the second round after Davey slows down a bit. Davey has fought the way tougher competition, so for the purposes of the channel, I'll pick Davey. Um, but I'll be watching the live betting opportunity. I really like both these guys. I don't like having to, pick against either one of them. I think Marcos has got a pretty high ceiling. Next up, we got Michael Parkin taking on Jamal Pogues. And Parkin is 27 years old. He is 6'4" with a 79-inch reach. He is 6-0, and this is going to be his UFC debut. And he's a plus 180 underdog. Yeah, he's coming off a submission victory on the Contender Series. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. All of his wins have been by finish, 5 knockouts, 1 submission. Uh, had a very long amateur career as well. He never lost as an amateur either. He had Paul Craig in his corner in his last fight, and he moves laterally very well. Sorry. He did get taken down and tripped up, which worries me for him in this match. He's very powerful, but kind of wild with his striking. Seemed kind of like, he needed it to get a few more fights under his belt before the UFC, but, not often you see heavyweights getting submission wins, so, that's impressive. If you go through and look at his record, most of his wins are over guys with terrible records. One guy was 2-17, so hard to say much, based on that. He's taking on Jamal Pogues. He is 27 years old, 6'3" with a 77-inch reach. He is 10-3 and 1-0 in the UFC, and he's a minus 210 favorite. Yeah, Pogues used to fight down at light heavyweight, man. I would really like to see him back at that one day. I just don't know if he'll ever be able to get there. Pogues isn't scared to use his wrestling, man. He's very experienced. He's fought, the way tougher competition. He's fought in Bellator, LFA. Got 2 wins on the Contender Series. He's going to have the speed advantage. He's got good boxing. He uses his jab very well. Good outside trips. And I think his wrestling is what will get him the win in this fight. I think he's going to take Parkin down and wear on him and, possibly get a late finish. Kind of due to just Parkin being so tired that, he's just covering up, so I'm going to take Pogues to get the win by 3rd round finish by ground and pound. I think Pogues wins it, man. He's a lot better than a lot of people are giving him credit for. And I did notice that everyone on Tapology is going with Parkin. And I don't know why, man. So I'm going to be taking Pogues. Don't like the price. Next up, we got Andre Muniz taking on Paul Craig. And Andre is 33 years old, 6'1" with a 78-inch reach. He is 23-5 and 5-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 180 favorite. And, Andre kind of got exposed, in his last fight by Brendan Allen. We found out that Andre doesn't have much off of his back, man. He just seemed unable to get up and unable to do anything in that fight. I mean, of course, Allen's very good, but, we saw this high-level jiu-jitsu guy get submitted by Allen, who no one really talks about him, how they don't, you wouldn't think of them comparing Allen to Muniz. Everyone was so hyped on Muniz at that point. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. He has 15 wins by submission, 4 by knockout. He has some good wins, but he didn't look good at all in his last fight, man. It really surprised me. I had to play on him, lost some money there. Like I said, Allen's amazing, can't hold it against him, but this is a really interesting matchup, man. 2 guys with really good submissions. I really want Paul Craig to win this fight, really bad. Like I said, I've got traced my family all the way back to Scotland, so I kind of root for the Scottish fighters. But Andre's striking isn't very good, man, but it's probably better than Paul's. But Paul's striking did look a lot better in the Ozdemir fight. He actually landed some shots, and even though he lost that fight pretty badly, but it's hard to say who's got the better grappling here, though, man. Andre has better takedowns and trips, but if he does that, that's he's going to go into Paul's guard, which is right where Craig wants him, and to be in the guard. It's a pretty hard pick, actually, man. But he's taking on Paul Craig. He is 35 years old, 6'3" with a 76-inch reach. He is 16-6-1 and 8-6-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 150 underdog. Paul's had, let's see, what was it? 13 wins by submission and 3 by knockout. He's had some pretty impressive victories, man, in the UFC. Say what you want about Paul Craig, man, but he's got a win over the current champ. He's got a win over Magomed Ankalaev, Nikita Krylov. He's that good off of his back that he can submit, the best light heavyweights in the UFC. And honestly, this is kind of a fight that Paul Craig could win. Because Muniz isn't some power puncher; he's a jiu-jitsu guy, which plays into Craig's game. And I would say Paul probably has the cardio advantage. He's very tricky, man. Whenever he's got someone in his guard, he will wrap up both of the arms, man, and hold them down when someone is in when somebody is in his guard. Sorry. So that they can't move while he's throwing up his triangle, man. And he's very fast with it and, really slick. And, I feel like I definitely should pick Muniz probably, but for some reason, man, my gut is telling me Craig's going to get the upset win like he has so many times before. Um, so I'm going to pick Craig to win by submission. I wouldn't put any money on it. I probably wouldn't even put this one in a parlay. One thing that did throw me off though is after I ran all the tape and everything, I realized that Tapology has this fight at middleweight. So I'm not totally convinced Paul can make the weight. He's a pretty big guy. So for now, I'm going to pick Paul, man. But if he looks dead at the weigh-ins, I'll switch my pick, man. He's a really big guy, and cutting that's a 20 pounds, to be coming down that much. It's kind of crazy that he could do that, So, but if he does have a successful weight cut, that means he's probably going to be a lot more powerful against opponents that are more his size. He is kind of tall and skinny, so it'll be interesting to see how it plays out for him. Next up, we got Nathaniel Wood taking on Andre Fili. This should be a really good fight. Okay, so Nathaniel Wood is 29 years old, 5'6", with a 69-inch reach. He is 19-5 and 6-2 in the UFC, and he's a minus 190 favorite. Yeah, this guy's the real deal, man. He's looked amazing since coming up to 145. I think very, very highly of Charles Jourdain, and Wood made him look pretty easy in that fight. It was a close first round, but Wood really took over and was landing the way harder shots. He's well-rounded, 8 wins by knockout, 6 by submission. He has good trip takedowns and good Muay Thai trips, very good boxing. He was really beating Jourdain's legs up in that last fight, man. He slips punches very well, counters off of him. When he slips punches, he counters very well. And, he seems to be very powerful. He had Jourdain wobbled quite a few times in that fight. He pushes a really tough pace and has the cardio to back it up. My only worry in this fight for him really is that, he's going to be at a big size disadvantage, but since he's come up to 145, that's pretty much been the case in all of his fights. So, nothing that he's not used to. And he's still been getting the wins. So, he hasn't been submitted in a very long time since the beginning of his career. Should be a very fun fight to watch, possibly the fight of the night. And, yeah, I think Nathaniel Woods got the advantages, most places here, but he's taking on Andre Fili. He's 33 years old, 5'11", with a 74-inch reach. He is 22-9 and 10-8-1 in the UFC. One no contest, and he's a plus 157 underdog. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage. He's going to be the bigger guy here. 9 wins by knockout, 3 by submission. Mostly decision victories in the UFC, and yeah, he looked really good his last time out, man. It was a split decision, but I thought he clearly won that fight against Bill Algeo. Andre has fought a lot of tough competition, man. If we look at his record real quick, been around a while, man. And of course, he beat Bill Algeo. He got knocked out by Joe Anderson Brito, but who hasn't done that? He had the no contest with Daniel Pineda because of an eye poke. Lost to Bryce Mitchell, just got taken down a lot. He's got a win over Charles Jourdain. Went to a decision with Sadiq Youssef. Miles Jury beat him. Lost to Michael Johnson, split decision. Artem Lobov, Dennis Bermudez. He's fought Calvin Cater, Yair Rodriguez. He's fought a lot of tough competition, man. Very experienced. And his kicks are one of his best weapons, and that was on full display against Algeo. Aljo was keeping his hands really low, kind of that karate type stance, and he was coming right over the top with the high kick, and throws a lot of good long punches, man. Nice and straight down the middle. If he can use his reach in this fight and keep Wood at bay with his jabs, he may have a good shot at this, man. And also, there is a chance maybe he could get a takedown. Um, but I really do like the price on Wood, man. It's not totally out of line yet, and I'm going to be picking him to get the win by decision. Just because Andre's hard to finish, man. I don't think Brito and Wood quite have the same power. Brito's very powerful, but it could happen. Um, but I think it's going to go Wood unanimous decision. I'm going to go with that. Um, Next up, we got Aaron Murphy taking on Joshua Kulibau. And this is probably going to be fight of the night, too, man. Should be a very good fight. And Murphy is 32 years old. He is 5'9" with a 73.5-inch reach. He is 10. He's 12-0 and 1, and he is 4-0 and 1 in the UFC. And that the not no contest. It was a draw. Um, who is that against? Zabera Tukagov. So he's a good fighter. He's a minus 157 favorite. I really thought Murphy lost his last fight, man. I think if they hadn't been fighting in London, he probably would have lost. Kind of the home favorite. So the guy he fought was making his UFC debut and went on to get knocked out in his next fight. So that really had me questioning, how good Murphy really is, and he's got 7 wins by knockout on his record. He's never won or lost a fight by submission. He has good striking. He's powerful. He's going to have what was it? He's only going to have a half-inch reach advantage, and I guess I just don't like when someone comes in a minus 500 favorite and doesn't perform up to that standard, against a debuting guy on short notice. So he gave up quite a few takedowns in his last fight. All that being said, he's really good, man. He was landing a lot of hard calf kicks in that fight. He's really been working on his wrestling. Good submission defense. He doesn't get super wild, man. He's pretty measured with his approach. He doesn't waste a lot of energy. Should be a very exciting fight, man. And he's taking on Joshua Kulibau. He is 29 years old, 5'10", with a 73-inch reach, and he's 11-1-1 and 3-1-1 in the UFC, and he's a plus 130 underdog. And yeah, I'm a big Kulibau fan. I've been very impressed with him. His only loss so far was to Jalen Turner, which is up a weight class, and Jalen Turner is way bigger than him, of course. He's a very good kickboxer, very fast. The turning point for me with him was watching him beat the crap out of Sung Woo Choi. Really good performance, man. He dropped him a bunch of times. He showed in his last fight that he's got great jiu-jitsu as well. He's got 5 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He's a really slick striker. I don't have a problem after watching the tape saying that I think he's probably the better striker. Murphy's probably going to have the power advantage. Kulibau uses a lot of feints. He switches stances a lot. Nice head movement. And I think he throws better volume out of these two as well. I originally thought I was going to pick Murphy on this, man. I kind of had my mind made up going in. But after going back and watching the tape, man, I can't turn down the plus money on Kulibau. I had a plus money play on him the last time he fought as well, so that kind of helps it out a little bit. I'm going to take him to win by decision, man, but it could definitely be a close fight. I think Kulibau's going to have the speed advantage. Could be a very close fight, man. I can't turn down the plus money on Kulibau. Next up, we got Jai Herbert taking on Fares Zaim. Fares Zaim. I'll get it right eventually. Jai Herbert is 35 years old, 6'1" with a 77-inch reach. He is 12-4-1 and 2-3-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 115. And his only wins in the UFC being over Kyle Nelson and Kama Worthy. The only thing that really scares me about Jai is, he's been finished 3 times in the UFC. He's a very good kickboxer, man. He almost beat Tybura with a front kick to the face. He's very tall and long for the weight class. He's going to have a 2-inch reach advantage. And, in his last fight, he showed he's been working on his wrestling a bit. He's got 9 wins by knockout, 1 by submission. He's got really good footwork, man. He's very fast. He's very aggressive off his back. He was really beating the crap out of Ludovic Klein, from bottom with elbows busted him open and everything. And honestly, if I hadn't seen him get finished 3 times in the UFC, I would jump on him, no questions asked. He's very talented. He's a really good striker, and I really do appreciate his striking. It's very good. Throws deadly elbows off his back, like I said, man. So I don't know. I don't really see Zaim wanting to take this fight to the ground. And I'm not totally sure who's got the better grappling of these two, as they're both primarily known for their striking. Um, Zaim is 26 years old, 6'1", with a 75-inch reach, and he's 13-4 and 3-2 and 1, or 3-2 in the UFC. Sorry, my headphones were doing something weird there for a second. Hold on. All right, I think we're good now. He's a minus 105. Much of the same could be said for Zaim, man. At least in the striking, he's a very good kickboxer. He's tall, long for the weight class. He showed to have a little bit of trouble with the takedown defense and submission defense in the McKinney fight, but I'm sure he's worked on that, since then. McKinney's a very good wrestler, so you can't hold that against him. Zaim has 4 wins by knockout, 5 by submission on his record. He's never been knocked out. He beat an 8-0 undefeated guy his last time out. I think he was an underdog there. He's very fast and powerful, and even though he hasn't shown it in the UFC yet, he hasn't got any finishes in the UFC. It's all been unanimous decision victories, I think. And very fast kicks. He throws high kicks with his lead leg sometimes, and it's kind of hard to see those coming, man, because you're looking for the back leg, and he's popping the front one up. He's a very good counter striker, good at sliding out of the way of shots, throws great combinations, uses his jab very well. He even got some nice takedowns in his last fight, man. He got a couple of good trip takedowns. If I wasn't worried about Jai getting finished, I would pick him. I would pick Jai, man. But I'm going to go with Zaim here, man. And I'm going to say he gets his first finish, in the UFC. The way he was looking in his last fight, he was landing some hard shots. He rocked that guy several times. But this could be a very close fight, and I wouldn't be surprised if Herbert won. I wouldn't be surprised at all. But I'm going to take Zaim to get a knockout win here, round 2. Next up, we got the co-main event. Molly McCann, Julija Storylanenko. Let's see. Molly McCann is 33 years old, 5'4", with a 62-inch reach. She is 13-5 and 6-4 in the UFC, and she's a minus 310 favorite. And first off, no way I'm dropping minus 310 on somebody that has kind of questionable takedown defense and submission defense. I know Erin Blanchfield's very good, very good at what she does. But Molly is very powerful, wild striking, crazy spinning elbows and whatnot. I'm a big fan of hers, and I think the UFC has given her a fight that they think she will win. She's very short and stocky, very exciting and fun to watch. The line is so high, man, that I have trouble getting to Molly McCann at that fight. And I know Storylanenko's record doesn't look that good, but I'll tell you why. Storylanenko is 30 years old, 5'7", with a 69-inch reach. She is 10-7 and 1 and 1 and 5 in the UFC. I know. And like I said, I understand she's 1 and 5, but she's been fighting tough chicks up to, all the way up at like 140 pounds at times, in bantamweight, And this is going to be her flyweight debut. So she's going to have a 7-inch reach advantage, 9 wins by submission on her record. She's a very accomplished grappler if you look into it. She showed in the Rose Clark fight that, if you have those weaknesses, she will definitely exploit them. And she locked up an armbar and bent Rose Clark's arm the way it wasn't supposed to bend. Molly's going to have the striking advantage, obviously, and I'm really, really tempted here after watching, looking into it and seeing how much of a amazing grappler Storylanenko is. She has good takedowns, man, and if Molly gets taken down, it's over in my opinion. And I don't agree with the line being that big, even though, Storylanenko's 1 and 5 in the UFC. She did get a win 2 fights ago, and she did it pretty impressively. and she's definitely going to have the grappling advantage. I think she'll definitely be able to get a takedown if she shoots for one. Um, man, you know what? I'm just going to go with it, and I'm going to say Storianeko to win by submission. Um, I might I wouldn't be able to get to this on most of my parlays, but maybe I'll throw an underdog parlay with like the three most confident dogs on this card together and put about $100 on it or something. Um, for the big plus money, man. I'm sure I'll get a lot of hate for that one, but yeah, that's the cool thing about picking dogs, man. I do it a lot. Is no one's surprised when you're wrong, but I do I do like to find my own narrative, man, and kind of pick holes in what everybody else thinks and kind of find paths to victory for people that are getting counted out. And sometimes it works in my favor, sometimes it doesn't, man. But um, I think Story Nako's grappling is that good as long as she doesn't get knocked out in the first minute of the fight. Um, and next up we got the main event: Tom Aspinall taking on Marcin Tybura. Really looking forward to this one, man. It was unfortunate that Tom had that injury in his last fight, and because he probably would have fought for a title by now already if he had won that fight. Tom's 30 years old. He's 6'5" with a 78-inch reach. He is 12-3 and 5-1 in the UFC, and he's a minus 440 favorite. And yeah, coming back off that nasty leg injury, I think it was a torn ACL. In his run in the UFC, man, he showed us that he can do it all, man. 8 wins by knockout on his record, 4 by submission, which is kind of rare for a heavyweight to have that many wins by submission. These guys' reaches are the exact same, man. Tom's very fast and explosive. Really good boxing. He can get the takedowns. He's got good trips. He's very powerful, man. I think. Let's see, one that was. Yeah, he's got two knockouts and 2 submissions, and well, I think 3 knockouts and 2 submissions. But yeah, man, I'm really high on Tom, man. Kind of worried about what he's going to look like coming off of how long was the layoff? That wasn't even a year yet, man. So not that long. He's really got a high ceiling, man. I expect him to do a lot of good things. Do I see him? I would love to see him fight John Jones. Do I see Tom ever getting a title? I don't know, but I hope he does. I'm a big fan of his. You know, yeah, I don't know. I don't like the price, man. It's hard to make money on that. He deserves to be a favorite, but Tybura is a tricky guy, man. So Tybura is 37 years old, 6'3" with a 78-inch reach. He is 24-7 and 11-6 in the UFC. He's had 8 wins by knockout and 7 by submission. Marcin is very tough, very experienced. He's a good grappler. He's hard to take down. He exposed Alexander Romanov, man. Pieced him up and had him gassed out after the first round. Keeps it pretty simple on the feet, man. Simple pause with the jabs. Doesn't swing too big. Doesn't go too wild. He fights pretty safe as well. He's on a good run right now, man. If we take a look at his record, I've actually been very impressed with him, man. Because let's see, last win, Blagoy Ivanov beat Alexander Romanov. Lost to Alexander Volkov, but can't fault him for that. He knocked out Walt Harris, knocked out Greg Hardy, beat Ben Rothwell, Maxim Grisham, Sergey Spivak. That's probably his best win, in my opinion. He did have a couple knockout losses back in the day when he first came to the UFC. Derek Lewis, Augusto Sakai. That's a bad loss, but since then he's made the improvements and really turned the corner. And he's really just showed that he's an experienced veteran, man, and that he's well-rounded enough that he can't really be taken advantage of very well, man. So, excuse me. So how do I think Aspinall wins this fight? He's going to have a major speed advantage here, and he moves very well for a heavyweight. And I expect him to probably slip a lazy punch of Tybura's and hit him with a punch and drop him, and maybe jump on a submission. Excuse me. And like I said, he deserves to be a favorite. I just wish the line was more to where we could make money on him. I'll have to look at the props and see what the Aspinall by submission is. And sorry, I'm out of it today. Um, yeah, I was doing flooring all day today, hardwood flooring. Uh, that's all my picks, man. As far as my bets go, man, I don't have my big parlays ready yet, but I will put them together in the next few days, and I'll post them on Instagram and Facebook, and I'll post them on the community tab in my YouTube channel. So if you're subscribed, they'll pop up in your feed. But so far, I got a, two fight parlay that is Nathaniel Wood and Mahmoud Muradov. That's a plus 108. I got one unit on that, and and I got a sorry, and I got a one unit play on, or sorry, half unit play on Yanel Ashmouz. Um, got a one unit play on Alvarez. I've got a small play on Joshua Kulibau at plus money, and it's like a little less than a quarter unit. And then I've got another small play on Barez, and I actually caught him at plus 105 when the line shifted for a little bit. Um, yeah, that's it so far, man. I might put together, like I said, I'll probably put together an underdog parlay that's got like Kulibau and Barez and Stoyaneko on it, just for shits and gigs, just see if it hits. And considering, not sure which way I'm going to go on the Davy Grant Daniel Marcos fight, but the lines are pretty even, so it's a good opportunity to make money. So I'll probably include them in one of those parlays as well. Um, but yeah, man, that's all for me, man. This is one of those cards that I really did enjoy, running the tape on. There's a lot to look forward to in this card. Um, it was unlike last week's card, the home versus Bueno Silva card. I just had a lot of trouble getting into that, when I was running the tape and stuff like that. So there's a lot to look forward to on this one. But yeah, man, I really appreciate you guys. Please like and subscribe. Please comment. It really helped me out. Um, I had like one of my most viewed videos a few weeks ago, man, and for some reason it dropped back down to, even probably some of the worst numbers that I've had. So please comment stuff, man. Try to help me out. Give it a like, all that stuff, man. And I really appreciate you guys. Y'all have a good one, man.